It is time to stop the lies. It is time for veracity. It is time to get serious about understanding global warming. Is carbon dioxide the thermostat on the wall causing global warming that will destroy Earth? Or is the opposite true? Let's study the facts from the highest authorities of climate observation. First, the scientific consensus that carbon dioxide helps insulate the planet from the cold of space is absolutely true. The lie is hiding that carbon dioxide has two properties that cool the planet during natural global warming. And how does that lie affect policy from the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and signers of the Paris Climate Agreement? Would those policies, based on a lie, destroy forests and accelerate global warming? The IPCC knows that sulfates associated with anthropogenic carbon dioxide cool the Earth. And NASA? Quote, scientists say the world would be even warmer if not for the surge in plant growth, which, as they went on to explain, was almost entirely caused by humans returning carbon dioxide back to the atmosphere. Was NASA correct about this long-term effect of carbon dioxide? That is what the study is about. So let's get the facts and find out. In science, there are facts and theories. Facts are what we see. Theories try to explain what we see. For example, watch the left ball. You will see it quickly go to the right, come back, and stop, and keep repeating that. Why does it suddenly stop on its return? Why doesn't it keep going? When the ball moves, that causes the other balls to move. If we record that movement, we have facts. Global warming is the same. When carbon dioxide moves, that causes global temperature to move. If we record that movement, we have facts. So before we jump to any conclusions about the full effects of carbon dioxide, let's first get the facts. To see carbon dioxide's full effect on global warming, we will go to all 9 international climate tracking centers. There is no higher authority. Do all 9 agree on carbon dioxide's full effect on global warming? At each climate center, we will only see the full effect of carbon dioxide on global warming. The full effect is carbon dioxide's warming minus its cooling effects. Just as we saw the factual movements of balls over a few seconds, all caused by the movement of one ball, these graphs will show the factual movements of global warming over 62 years, all caused by the movement of carbon dioxide. Let's begin by understanding the X and Y axis. A movement of carbon dioxide is a movement of the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. When a movement in carbon dioxide occurs, the timer starts, so the climate centers can track changes in global warming. The horizontal scale shows how much time has elapsed. In this case, it would show the effect on global temperature 5 months after the change in carbon dioxide levels. For example, a leg of 2 means that 2-month changes in greenhouse gas were tested against 2-month changes in global temperature. And the leg between CO2 and temperature was 2 months. It answers the question, what were the changes to temperature 2 months after changes in the greenhouse gas?
It should be noted that there are many ways to set up the test. Precedence testing is part art and part science. The important thing here is that the relationship between greenhouse gases and global temperature are so strong that every method tried did not affect the conclusion. The method as defined was thus chosen for only one reason, the beauty of the test. It shows, 1. Precedence. Is the gas a potential cause of climate change? Second, cumulative effect. How does the response grow with time? And third, lasting power. Does the effect last or disappear?
The term forcing will be used. It means that an increase in the gas forces the climate to increase in temperature, or decrease when the gas is decreased.
Anti-forcing is the opposite. Increase the gas, climate cools; decrease the gas, climate warms. Or more accurately, during natural global warming, an increase in the gas dampens climate change.
The vertical scale shows if the full effect of carbon dioxide causes warming or cooling. Results above the line mean that more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere causes warming. Results below the line mean that more carbon dioxide causes cooling.
3% means that the gas caused 3% of the variation of global temperature. 0% means that the gas does not force temperature at all. Minus 1% means that changes in the gas cause 1% of the variation of temperature, but negatively, anti-forcing. Rather than causing global warming, the gas actually dampened climate change.
The nature and strength of the relationship between the cause effect of a gas and temperature is shown on a high-low mean bar. This bar shows that the gas at a lag of 3 months potentially causes
About 0.8% of the variation of temperature, but it could explain as much as 1.5%.
or as low as minus 1% anti-forcing within a 95% range of confidence. The bar shows the sum of all relationship types: direct, indirect, feedback, multiple, multivariate, spurious, coincidental, fast, slow, and many other relationship types.
And finally, the word confidence will be used. In science, some fields are okay with 95% confidence. That equates to a 5% chance, or a 1 in 20 chance, that the results are random. With world policy weighing the ills of warming versus the ills of suffocating C3 flora, doesn't a higher level of assurance seem more appropriate? Would you walk across the street with a 5% chance of being killed? 99.999% equates to 1 in 100,000 chance of being wrong, more in line with the 1 in 40,000 odds of being killed walking across the street. Look for 5 nines, 99.999% or higher. Shown here are the various components of the greenhouse gases and global temperature. As part of best practices, trend, diurnal or daily, and seasonal cycles were removed. This was done to ensure that the results are not strongly biased by trend, diurnal, or seasonal cycles that can be affected by solar cycles.
The cause-effect relationship found in the stationary components between CO2 and T is the same cause-effect relationship found between their trends and other components. So removing the trends and other components does not affect the result, because the underlying cause-effect of the physics between CO2 and T does not magically vary by component. Another reason for analyzing the stationary component of each variable is because this test is being conducted in the real world, not in a lab. In a lab, the greenhouse gas would be changed and then held at that change. The effect on temperature would then be measured. But in the real world, changes can't be held because an hour later, the control variable, greenhouse gas, changes again. Using the stationary component of each variable assures that half of the outcomes will thus be higher and half will be lower than what would be seen in the lab. Take the average and you get the same lab result. A quick look at the level of confidence of that average tells you if the sample size was adequate to handle the variability and if the method used to extract the trend, diurnal, and seasonal bias was adequate. That is the power of working with the stationary form of each variable. It should also be noted that the conclusion did not change when this step was not performed or performed differently. This method and its results are shown because it embodies the correct scientific method.
CO2 greenhouse, as we discussed in the video on CO2 physics, is a fast process. Cause effect only takes nanoseconds to days. We would expect to see its cause effect using hourly data.
MLO in Hawaii has hourly real-time measurements of the primary greenhouse gases, moisture, carbon dioxide, and methane. Scientists began logging cause effects in 1987. The measurement devices are located on the same tower set, giving extraordinary in situ data. 41 years of hourly data from arguably the world's premier greenhouse gas research station. Great place. Let's go. The purpose of these fast reaction tests are to see greenhouse gas effects. Are the data and method at a high enough fidelity to detect greenhouse effects directly in the atmosphere? And will atmospheric moisture, methane, or carbon dioxide be the most powerful climate forcers? The legs are in hours and days. First up is the most powerful greenhouse gas, atmospheric moisture. Greenhouse forcing is detected in the first 6 hours at extraordinary confidence. Then 1 day later, forcing grows. It takes a change in atmospheric moisture about a week to 2 months for maximum absorption of long-wave radiation, 3 to 4% forcing with extraordinary confidence. Next up, methane. Initial forcing is about half of H2O. No surprise that it too takes about a week to 2 months for maximum absorption of long-wave radiation. Final forcing is about a seventh of H2O. Now for carbon dioxide. It may not look like much, but CO2 starts off stronger than CH4 and H2O. But then the green property of CO2, aerosols, and flora take over. By 1 month, the full effect of CO2 becomes neutral. But what happens in the long term? Will it begin to force as the aerosol effect wears off? Or will it anti-force as the flora-effect grows? Let's summarize the greenhouse gases. Carbon dioxide, methane, and atmospheric moisture. We found evidence of the greenhouse gas cause effect, and as expected, atmospheric moisture explains about 3% to 4% of climate change. Greenhouse gases were fast, with max effects in a week to 2 months, and methane forced much less than atmospheric moisture, validating that the MLO data records were of high enough fidelity for standard cause-effect analysis. The gases are ranked as follows for their initial cause effects. Atmospheric moisture is a major league player, methane is a minor league player, and carbon dioxide was neutralized, possibly by its associated aerosol effect. Now we will focus on the long-term effects of carbon dioxide on climate change. The flora effect of carbon dioxide, as discussed in the section on physics, is a slow process. Cause effect takes hours to months. NASA and NOAA say that the flora property should anti-force, be strong, and be detectable seasonally, meaning a monthly timescale. You will be pleased to know that NASA and NOAA are correct, as we now look at monthly factual records documenting long-term cause effects. The charts are similar. First, we need to shift the scale to show stronger anti-forcing. That's better. The horizontal scale will show long-term cause effects in months, not hours and days. What are the facts from NASA? After 5 months, global temperature cooling every time. The facts according to Berkeley Earth, cooling every time. The facts according to the University of York, cooling every time. The facts according to Hadley Met Center, cooling every time. And the facts according to the Tokyo Regional World Climate Center, cooling every time. As with all the other recorded facts from every climate center, carbon dioxide continues to cool the climate year after year, decade after decade after decade. Now for the high-tech climate centers using satellites and buoys. Here is 41 years of global temperatures from satellites. Because satellite records are more accurate, the actual cause of global warming becomes evident to those familiar with winds and ocean currents. But before revealing the actual cause of global warming, let's take a break and do a magic trick. I'm going to convince you that carbon dioxide is the cause. Ready? Look how 41 years of carbon dioxide rise goes right through the middle of the rise of global warming. Clearly, carbon dioxide is the cause of global warming. Convinced? Don't feel bad if you were. Some climate scientists were also fooled. Just cherry pick the time period, alter scales, use distraction, and do it fast. So let's look closer. When studied, carbon dioxide has been dampening the natural rise in global warming. When carbon dioxide rose slowest, global warming rose fastest. When carbon dioxide rose fastest, global warming rose slowest. And lows in global temperature occur more often during highs in carbon dioxide. But most important, there is no variation in carbon dioxide that remotely explains a large variation in global temperature. What's worse is that this substance, portrayed by the black line, correlates higher to global warming than carbon dioxide. The black line shows a faster rise here than here, consistent with the rise in temperature, large jumps here before jumps in temperature, and flat periods here leading to lows in temperature. Yes, the cost of ice cream actually explains more of global warming than carbon dioxide. That is the ribbing that some scientists reserve for ignoring the fact that carbon dioxide has two properties that cool. Magic has no place in science. So let's keep our eye on the ball and focus on global warming so we can find its true cause. Unlike ice cream and carbon dioxide, notice that global warming does not have a systematic rise. Warming is level through here, a big jump, level through here, a big jump, level for 19 years, a big jump, and so far level since 2016. What we see are huge bursts in energy, about every 2 to 7 years, with sometimes a burst being enough to create a lasting step in temperature. For physicists and oceanographers, that was the clue needed to discover the cause of global warming. What weather event occurs about every 2 to 7 years, creates hot weather, and gets your TV host so excited that they speak Spanish? Yes, El Niños. El Niño is a small piece of the ocean that releases the heat equivalent of several atomic bombs per second for however long it lasts, a couple of months to over a year. Let's see if El Niño is a cause of global warming. Unlike carbon dioxide that does not precede warming and thus cannot be the cause of warming, let's see if El Niño events precede each jump in warming. Here they are. Each vertical dark red bar represents a month of El Niño warming. El Niño burst, big burst, 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 big burst, 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 big burst, burst, burst. A burst function that precedes global warming by 4 months, the exact amount of time it takes warming to circle the globe. Is El Niño the only cause of global warming? No, El Niño is just one small part of a system of air and ocean currents and ocean stored heat. El Niño tiene muchos hermanos y hermanas. Es una familia working together to cause global warming. And no, while the oceans greatly affect carbon dioxide does not heat the oceans. Scientists know that the oceans are almost entirely heated by the sun. The sun heats the oceans. The oceans lose heat to the atmosphere, causing global warming. The heating power of several atomic bombs per second. That explains why the cooling power of carbon dioxide only dampens the unstoppable warming power of El Nino and his family. Carbon dioxide dampens the natural rise of global warming. As can be seen from the Greenland ice cores, long before humans began returning carbon dioxide back to the atmosphere, Earth experienced these warmings about every 1,000 years. Once you know that climate change is real, it's easy to see that the recent rise in rate of warming is normal and natural. While carbon dioxide can't reverse natural global warming, it does stabilize it. Certainly, any gas that greens the Earth, protects the habitat for endangered species, and dampens global warming deserves our support. But before you jump up and friend carbon dioxide, let's first see the facts from the final three highest authorities on climate change. These facts all come from advanced buoys. Two also use satellites to see global temperature. Do they also agree that the full effect of carbon dioxide is to cool the Earth? And I sincerely apologize to those that believe that the full effect of carbon dioxide is to cause global warming, because the scale needs to be adjusted again to show even stronger cooling. Much better. The first pairing is global temperature and CO2, all from NOAA. With NOAA global CO2, the cooling effects become even stronger after 8 months. Now, buoys and satellites from RSS satellite. The facts record even stronger cooling. And finally, NASA Huntsville and NOAA. The facts again record even stronger cooling. As with all the other recorded facts from every climate center, carbon dioxide continues to cool the climate year after year, decade after decade after decade. After all of those factual records, do you still believe that the full effect of carbon dioxide is a thermostat on the wall controlling global warming? If so, every international climate center seeing and recording the actual facts is at odds with your belief. Furthermore, the facts you just saw are verified by every study ever conducted on carbon dioxide's full effect on global warming. While there have been many studies on the greenhouse effect of carbon dioxide, and a few studies of trends, which, as any graduate in quantitative science knows, is meaningless when studying cause-effect, the first study on the full effect of how changes in carbon dioxide affect changes in global temperature was conducted in 2010 by Dr. Paulo Soares. The finding was that carbon dioxide does not have a causal relation with global warming, and it is not powerful enough to cause the historical changes in temperature that were observed. The next study in 2013 by Dr. Ole Helmlem, Dr. Shel Stordal, and Dr. Jan Solheim found that modern changes in temperatures are generally not induced by changes in atmospheric carbon dioxide. Then in 2017, it was confirmed by Dr. Bill Elliott and Dr. Jim Angel that carbon dioxide has always cooled when the climate warmed. Here is Franz, an aerospace technical fellow and prolific inventor that simply wanted to know how to live in harmony with our planet. So using no outside funding in this unbiased 2020 study, he compiled the facts from every climate center in the world. And the facts confirm that every greenhouse gas warms the air except carbon dioxide that just after a few months cools. He then compiled the evidence that it is plants and trees causing carbon dioxide long-term cooling, and helped bring to light the physics and evidence behind the actual cause of climate change, the sun storing heat in the oceans that gets released into the atmosphere by winds and ocean currents. Facts versus theories. Facts are what we see. Theories try to explain what we see. It is a fact that changes in CO2 have preceded dampening of climate change for the past 60 plus years. Why is that a fact? It is what we see in the actual atmosphere, not the output from a model. And those high fidelity records from every authority on climate change agree. It is also a fact that changes in CO2 have preceded the greening of Earth for the past 40 years. It is reasonable theory that short-term neutralization of CO2 greenhouse effects is from aerosol cooling. It is reasonable theory that long-term cooling by CO2 is caused by flora and or phytoplankton growth response. And it is reasonable theory that the primary cause of climate change is the sun storing energy in the ocean to be later released by winds and ocean currents, because those changes precede changes in global temperature and alone explain 81 to 94% of climate change. It is completely debunked theory that CO2 causes global warming and that global warming is anthropogenic. Why? We do not see the required changes in CO2 preceding changes in global temperature. Those theories are contrary to the facts. For those that continue to spread the lies despite knowing the facts, they will be exposed and go down in history for what they are: charlatans practicing Lysenkoism, eco-terrorists intent on accelerating global warming and depleting our forests. For them, we have a special prize. We are establishing the Franz Award, a $1 million prize to anyone that can present facts that it is even possible for the full effect of carbon dioxide to force global climate. We know that they only have models based on political narratives and the big lie that there is only one climate property of carbon dioxide. Now, everyone will know that they are full of ice cream. If you are interested in learning more, this is a list of videos intended to answer questions. The videos in blue are meant for college level students. The videos in white are meant for doctorates and technical fellows.